we're also with former Chelsea man working for talkSPORT last night. Of course, he was on co-commentary duty for Dinamo Zagreb against Chelsea, and I'm talking Andy Townsend. Andy, good morning.
Morning, Jim, Simon, Danny, how are you?
Right, good morning, Andy, we're all good, Andy. What's your take on it then? Could you have envisaged Tuchel getting the bump this morning?
No, I couldn't. Look, I think, and I was listening to, I'm actually out walking the dog at the moment in the Cotswolds, but I was listening to you guys earlier, and when I heard, when I heard what you were talking about earlier, just after the news had broken, and I heard Danny mention that, because Tuchel sort of left a bit on the players last night, and I thought, well, maybe that was just to G him up, just to wind him up that little bit more, ready for the Fulham game at the weekend, when he was saying attitude and commitment and all this. I actually thought they did huff and puff. There wasn't a lot of great idea about what they did at the top of the field last night, Chelsea, but I don't think you can fault them for wanting to try and make something happen in that game. It just didn't.
I agree with you.
I was very, very shocked this morning that he should get sacked. I suppose the more I'm thinking about it now, what defines ownership, Simon would know better than most. To me, are these decisions. It's not about spending 250 million quid. Anyone can do that. If you've got it in the bank sitting there, you can spend it. But I think what defines owning a football club is these moments in making the right call, pressing the button like they have done now, and then following that up with someone in 6 months' time. We all go, wow, what a good call that was. What a smart move that was. What a brave move that was. It was the right move. Now, whether that remains to be seen, with Todd Bowley, we're about to find out. But no surprises in some ways that a new owner feels like he needs to act at the first sign of any sort of hint of a wobble, and that's only where Chelsea are. What are they, 5 points off the top? In the league, they're not the first team to lose their first Champions League game. It can still qualify comfortably. By the way, comfortably, not just qualify.
Andy, I think what we've been trying to ascertain this morning, really, and hypothesise about is the reasoning behind it. Because, as you say, the football, although it's not been great at the beginning of the season, it's been okay. The signings are new. Some of them haven't hit the ground running. But have you found his demeanour a little bit different in the interviews, the way he's been talking? It's become a bit whingy and a bit the blame culture coming in, rather than the intelligent, articulate, kind of more positive man we saw months ago?
I would certainly say, Danny, he does cut a kind of, he's excitable, let me put it that way, on the sideline, and I think last night, looking at him during the game, he did look a very agitated, frustrated individual. He really did, but partly with his own making. I mean, he made that many changes last night. In the end, it became a bit of a mess. Just chucking people on, hoping that someone's going to do something. There didn't seem a lot of rationale behind some of those changes last night. It was just like get a player off and try and chuck someone on who's just as good. And there didn't seem to be a lot of tactical thought behind that. I thought there was too many in the end. But no, he has appeared frustrated, but then he often appears frustrated on the sideline.
Well, not just frustrated though, Andy. It's somewhat erratic as well. I mean, more recently when they went to Leeds, he was harping on the team, the squad all flew to Leeds, but the backroom staff had to go by bus, and that didn't help. I mean, something like that, really? That didn't help. They lost, and he's coming out with that.
Yeah, that is whinging, Jim. Those sort of excuses are I mean, he's better than that, than coming out with rubbish like that, because that's what he's got, and he's moaning about silly little things. But then again, he's got that sort of control freak kind of nature about him, where every last detail has to be absolutely right, otherwise it's a crisis. He's got that sort of feel about him a bit, but he's. In his defence, he's always, to me, been a bit like that. It's like he's got his eyes and his hands on everything, and the minute something is outside of his control, then it's a big problem to him. He can't quite seem to handle that.
We're just hearing, Andy, that Graham Potter has just finished taking training at Brighton. That's over. He's back in the building, wherever they're training down in the South Coast. So he no doubt will go in to hear the news that he's favourite. And there are reports that Brighton have been approached by Chelsea because Potter's the man they want. Would that be the right decision?
Well, again, look, Graham has done remarkably well in recent seasons. So Graham was a young man with me at West Bromwich Albion. You couldn't have met a nicer lad in lots of ways. And yet I never saw him fashioning the sort of career he has done for himself, to his absolute credit. Is he the right man for Chelsea? That is one of those decisions now that Todd Bowley is about. If he's about to make that one, that's a brave call. Because I don't think it's the difference between Brighton and Chelsea is chalk and cheese. The pressure, the demands, the expectation, and coping with and dealing with the sort of players, the squad that Chelsea have got is a very, very different kettle of fish to what Graham's been doing right now. Is he the right man? Only time will tell on that, Jim, because I like Graham and I like the way that he goes about it, but you can do that at Brighton. You can lose a game at Brighton and say, oh, well, I'm happy with what I saw. Let's move on. Next game will be better.
Sounds like, Andy, you're saying, I'm reading between the lines that you're saying he's a bit too nice to deal with the big boys.
Well, Dan, it's going to be one of those. If he walks in there and this is very, very new for him, this will be something on a completely different scale. Has he earned it? Right? Yeah, he has. I think his football is good. I think his demeanour is good. He seems to get the best out of players. His team hasn't suffered when they've sold and then they've reinvested, and they've still been able to find a way to win matches. So he's doing a lot right. But that is going to have to. I'm going to have to put that down as it's going to be a calculated risk that you take with someone like Graham Potter. One, he ticks a lot of the boxes, but he's never been in this sort of territory and company before.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.